not really,
I'm
but
sorry.
okay.
I apologize. We'll socialize a little bit more. No. All right, so it is 6 o'clock, so I want to go ahead and call to order the regular session of the Leavenworth City Planning Commission. Date is 7 January of 2019. I think everyone's had an opportunity to view the minutes from the December meeting. Are there anything that we need to add from the staff, any changes or anything? Does commissioners have any questions of the minutes from December? Well, if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept the.
I move we accept the minutes as printed.
All right, and a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's passed. All right, so we have some old business to discuss. So the old business is the 2018-11 residential rezoning for 600 Shawnee Street and 621 Seneca Street. Staff report, please.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, as you will remember, the Planning Commission reviewed this project at the October 1st, 2018 Planning Commission meeting and requested that the applicant make some changes. So we are back tonight to look at those revisions that have been made. So just to refresh your memory, this is a rezoning for the property known as the former Immaculata High School and the adjacent vacant lot to the north addressed as 621 Seneca Street. The request is to rezone the properties from Central Business District and R16 High Density Single Family Residential to RMX, which is Residential Mixed Use District. The property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Leavenworth Downtown Historic District. And it has been on the register since 2002. The requested RMX zoning district is intended to provide for high-density multifamily residential dwellings with a mix of appropriate neighborhood-serving uses. There is no requirement for a specific ratio of residential to commercial within a specific building, though, so it allows for quite a bit of flexibility for a particular property. The location is also part of the redevelopment overlay district, which the purpose is to facilitate the development of the property in downtown and northeast Leavenworth. In particular, this is part of the downtown core, which is intended to define Leavenworth's traditional and historic downtown core with a diverse mix of retail, office, and residential uses. And the downtown core should embrace redevelopment activities that promote diverse uses and activities that complement the established scale and urban form of the historic downtown. So the rezoning is being requested in order to repurpose the existing school building into a total of 38 apartment units. There are 37 one-bedroom and 1 two-bedroom units. And the gymnasium portion of the property would be proposed to be used as a commercial space for a gym or group fitness use and a juice bar, along with some other dividable commercial space that could be leased out. The proposed uses are currently allowable within the central business zoning district. However, the district does prohibit residential uses in the first half of the first floor of a building, and the applicant is proposing to use the entire first floor of the school portion for residential dwelling units, which is the reason for the need for the rezoning. So the main issue that was discussed last time was the parking for the project. Based on the uses, there's a total required parking of 108 spaces. At the last meeting, the Planning Commission requested that the applicant add a parking lot on the vacant lot at 621 Seneca Street to the north. Previously, they had been planning on using the public lot at the corner of 6th and Seneca as a primary source of parking. So since that meeting, the applicant did add the requested parking lot on that 621 Seneca Street. That added a total of, let's see, there's a total of 47 spaces on site now, including that lot. So we've got the 47 spaces on site, 35 additional in that public lot to the northeast, and 34 spaces in the adjacent, or 35 on-street parking spaces in the immediate surrounding streets. So that would be a total of 116 spaces between the, what's provided on-site, the public lot, and the public street parking. The development regulations do allow several provisions for a reduction in the number of required on-site parking spaces, and that would include mixed-use districts, which this, the request is for mixed use, and then also for registered historic properties in order to help preserve the integrity of existing sites and not adding too much parking space in an existing location. Since this is a registered property, the Leavenworth Preservation Commission did have to review this. They reviewed this on August 1st, 2018, and voted 5-0 to approve the proposed project. So for rezonings, there are some conditions of determination that the Planning Commission needs to review. I'll go through those quickly. The first is the character of the neighborhood. The subject property, again, is part of the downtown Leavenworth and the redevelopment overlay district with a variety of uses and building forms. Historic structures such as this one are common in the area. The second is the zoning and use of properties nearby. The properties to the east, south, and west are zoned Central Business District, and the properties to the north are zoned R16, High Density Single Family Residential District. The next is the suitability of the subject property for the uses to which it has been restricted. Again, the subject property is currently zoned Central Business District, which allows a variety of uses by right. The next condition is the extent to which removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby property. The proposed rezoning should have little to no detrimental effect on nearby property. There is already a mix of uses present in the downtown area, including multifamily. Staff does not anticipate that the volume of traffic generated by the proposed uses will be significantly higher than previously generated by the high school use that was on the site. The next condition is the length of time the subject property has remained vacant as zoned, and the structure has been unoccupied since June of 2017 when Immaculata was last in session at this school. The next condition is the relative gain to economic development, public health, safety, and welfare by the reduction of the value of the landowner's property as compared to the hardship imposed by such reduction upon the individual landowner. The proposed rezoning will have a positive effect on the economic vitality of downtown Leavenworth in terms of bringing more residents to the area, which will potentially increase the patronage of existing local businesses, as well as expanding the commercial offerings, and that will result in an expanded tax base for the downtown. The next condition is the recommendations of permanent or professional staff. Staff does recommend approval of the project. The next condition is the conformance of the requested change to the adopted or recognized comprehensive land use plan. Again, the subject area is identified as appropriate for commercial uses in the comprehensive plan. The majority of the downtown is identified as commercial on the future land use map. And there do exist already a mix of residential uses in the downtown area. Additionally, this is part of the downtown North Leavenworth redevelopment master plan area, which does promote the area as appropriate for a mixture of uses, including high-density multifamily developments. So based on that, staff does find that proposed request is in conformance with the adopted comprehensive plans. And the final is any other factors that may be relevant to a particular amendment. And we would just note that the proposal makes possible the adaptive reuse of a previously vacant building in the downtown area. So with that, if you have any questions of staff, I can answer those, and the applicant is here as well.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions?
None on the staff report. I was a little concerned that I just noticed that in looking through here that there's no lighting noted on here. Is that on another plan? No lighting in the parking lot?
I would have the architect come up, and he could talk about any lighting plans for the parking lot.
Okay.
So, sir, if you could just please state your name and your address, please, and thank you.
Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is John Clock, representing the owner and work for the architecture, Exact Architects. Address for Exact Architects is 3829 Main Street, Suite 007, Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you.
Okay. It's just, I was concerned about lighting in the parking lot because you're asking people to cross an alley into a backyard door to go into the building. And there's a need for security and safety, or at least the perception of that.
Yeah, the parking lot will have lighting. It's not shown on that plan. There's also building mounted lighting on the entire perimeter of the building at all the entrances.
Okay.
Mr. Clark, do you happen to know what the dimensions are of those parking spaces in that new parking lot? For the standard parking space?
If I remember correctly, there are 4 compact and 30 regular stalls, and the regular stalls are per the parking guidelines on the Leavenworth website. I believe it's 8
Yeah,
by 18, and then the compact are 7'6".
I had a question because it relates to the parking, because that was something that this commission was very concerned with initially, that we saw and knew that there wasn't adequate parking for what you had in that apartment complex. One of the things that's kind of learned from lessons learned, and maybe there's church people here that are very concerned, is that there was a concern that people in that complex may be parking in a church area, and the church doesn't want that to happen, and I've seen that happen here in town. My question to you is, it's kind of like a procedure, and that is with what you've done in the parking lot to meet our objectives, we appreciate that. But it's also like control and being a good neighbor, in that you've got designated parking. People rent these complexes, and they're going to be assigned, I hope to think, a designated parking spot. And they should not be parking in other non-designated areas. Public parking, I got it. Your parking lot, got it. But a church parking lot, I think, convenient to them is not good. And it's a hassle to a church. And I'm just using the example of Mr. Greenemeyer here in town with Carnegie. People live in some apartment complexes there, and they park at a place designated for the Presbyterian Church. So what they've done is when people rent those complexes, they say, this is your designated spot. Do not park in a church parking lot. Do not park there. And sometimes the church, in our Presbyterian Church, has had to call and say, tenants still go over there and park there, and they shouldn't. So I'm just saying, it's kind of like being a good neighbor, is that I hope that what you've done, you fixed the parking area with designated spots. Thank you, it's fantastic. But it's like people need to stay in their own area and not go park. And if there is, the church needs to have an outlet there, who to call and say, we still have people parking in our spot. So I hope that a procedure is also in place that was, I'll rent one of these places, thank you, and have a designated spot. So everyone would have a designated spot that's theirs, correct? Is that true?
Yes.
Or you just park wherever you want to?
Well, they will have, typically, the way they've done it in the past, the owner has done it in the past, and it's, Greenmeyer has been the property management, and it will likely be the property management for this.
Well, that'll be good, because the tenant is advised in what's their designated spot, and also made aware of, stay in your spot area. Don't go park in places you should not park.
Yeah, I would just be clear that the adjacent lot on the corner of 6th and Seneca is a public-owned
Right.
lot. That's a city lot, so that is not owned by the church.
Right.
On the opposite corner, let me get back over the map, to the north of of Seneca, that is a church-owned parking lot. So I think you're asking if someone would be assigned like your parking space number 16.
Right.
In the lot. I'm not sure if that's the plan. That's not a requirement that staff has put on them.
Got it.
I would think that if there were at some point parking issues, that, that could be discussed with the property manager.
Agreed.
But yeah, just to be clear that closest lot in is a city-owned lot, and so we can't prohibit any one particular use from using it.
I'm just saying, I know when we met before and discussed this, that the church had a viable concern of people parking in their church area. And so we hope that that has been resolved with what you've done, and people stay and be a good neighbor and don't abuse that.
Yeah, of course, and I think that everybody just needs to enforce the private parking lots, and anybody parking in those spots needs to be notified, but the public parking lots, we can't control.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions for our architect? All right, well, I guess since we've already opened it to public hearing, I'll now go ahead and open it up to anybody in the audience who would like to go ahead and speak either for or against this rezoning issue. If you would, just please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and let it fly.
I'm Bob Euler, longtime resident of Leavenworth. Home is at 3019 Grand and longtime member of First Christian Church. I'm much more comfortable with the plan as presented. I don't think it'll work what you're saying, because if my count is right, the new parking lot is like 32, 30.
46.
34 on the new lot.
Yeah, and you've got more units than that, right?
There are a total of 47.
Yeah, there's some additional, kind of head-in parking spaces on the back of the building, so it's a total of 47, but you're right, in that lot, there's just 34.
So, I mean, your point's well taken, but we know that that is a public lot across from us. For the years and years, of course, we had Temecula High School, it filled it up Monday through Friday, September through April, but they were all gone on Sundays when it was most important to us. But we realized that it is a public lot, but we were concerned that it would not become a public lot, end up being a private lot for the tenants just because they had no other place to park. But I think we'll be much more comfortable now that they've added the parking there. And in general, I'm in favor of the zoning change, because we've seen some of the schools in town that have been converted to apartments, and I think it's overall a good thing. And I'm old enough that I remember where the public parking lot is now was First Baptist Church when I first started going to First Christian Church, which is an old Gothic, to a very young person's eye, a very pretty building that was demolished, and we've demolished a number of, and of course it may have been well beyond repair. At any rate, I'm happy to see this being reused. I hope that they're successful, as some of the other schools have been in town. And I personally am much more comfortable now that they've added perhaps not enough parking places for every car if they fill up, because we know most everybody has 2 cars nowadays, even if you're doing a 1-bedroom apartment. But I'm much more comfortable with the present plan. So we thank you for your help in that matter.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I'm Jim Bliss, 1407 Lawrence Avenue here in Leavenworth. And I just was concerned, has it been the commission's thought of selling that public parking lot? I guess that was, and I'm a member of First Christian Church also. Has that been a consideration, that selling that public lot?
I think that was discussed preliminarily with the applicant, and the city manager indicated that the city would not be interested in selling that, so those discussions really didn't go beyond just that.
And if it would change, that the city would want to sell that, why it would go up for public bid or something? Or?
Yeah, I believe that had been
we would
the
have an
discussion, and I
opportunity.
know that, yeah, the church's interest had been considered in that.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be a planning commission issue?
That would be a city commission issue. Any sale of any city-owned property would be a consideration for the city
And
commission.
my assumption also would be there'd be a public hearing as well, so that everybody would have an opportunity to,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
yes, sir? Anyone? All right, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioners, any other concerns and considerations?
Yeah, Julie, just a clarification question. That parking lot to the southwest on Shawnee and 7th, can you refresh my memory? Is that a public lot?
It is not,
Belongs to the telephone.
it's Southwestern Bell,
Smell.
yeah. The ones that are striped are public, so there's the one here just adjacent that the church uses. There's the one here, this one's the one right across from City Hall. down here on Shawnee. This is the funeral home. Am I too far over?
No, you're good.
No, yeah, I'm right. And so this is a public lot. So there's a number that are within a couple block radius that we would anticipate, especially any commercial users. Commercial users in downtown are used to parking and maybe having to walk a block or, a little ways to their destination, so.
Okay, thank you.
Julie, who owns this lot that's labeled, 611 that just has a garage on there?
I believe that's Mr. Paul Bax.
It's what?
Paul Bax.
So it's a separate owner, not
Yes, that's
connected with
that's
the
a private
development at
owner.
all? Because it does give me some concern. You're going to have two huge parking lots on each side of a residentially owned property.
Yeah, and that's,
Development of that property. very
yeah,
good.
that's not a house or anything. It's an existing storage shed. It's not a home.
No, it's just storage.
Yeah.
As long as it's just left at that, it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Future development of it could be difficult, but.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, someone could potentially attempt to build a home there. It would be difficult with existing setbacks. And I would not anticipate that would probably happen.
I guess I always assumed it belonged to the church, to the high school.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, thought that since it was right there adjacent to the parking lot, but that is privately owned.
I think that answers everything I have.
Okay, great. So if there are no other questions, then we have three options. We can either recommend approval of the rezoning request from CVM to RMX to the City Commission. We can recommend denial of the rezoning request from CBD to RMX to the City Commission, or we can table the issue for additional information / consideration. I'm open for a recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we approve the rezoning of the request from the CBD to the RMX to the City Commission for the 2018-11 REZ.
And no caveats, no changes?
I don't have any.
All right. We have a motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor signify, saying yea? Yes, yea.
Yea.
Sorry.
Yay.
Aye.
I'm making a change.
My
Opposed?
hand up.
Opposed? My apologies, I got tongue-tied. All right, the motion is passed. Thank you very much. All right, well, it's time to move on to new business. So we have two items to go ahead and discuss. I guess I wanted to start the first one by saying that since Jay's not here, and then unless somebody here is interested in becoming the chairperson of the Planning Commission, that we table discussion of officers until the full commission is here so that everybody has an opportunity to.
Well, you're just going to keep on doing it, right?
No, I need to step down as the deputy because we're going to sell and move out of the city here by the end of the year. So I thought, I'm good until that comes, but my term will end when I depart. All right, so if there's no objection, then we'll just postpone it to
Sure.
next meeting. If that's okay.
Yep.
All right,
That's
great.
fine.
Second, revision of the bylaws, Article 1, members number 2. Ma'am.
Yep, just the only thing here, we just added that the appointments shall be made for 3-year terms. That is the rule. It just, in doing some just general housekeeping work with the bylaws for all of our boards, we noticed that was not listed in the bylaws, so just wanted to, just for consistency and clarity, just make sure that was in the bylaws and just kind of get it all in one spot.
Do we vote on this, or do we just say thank you very much and go with it?
I would take a vote, I don't know that you have to, but just so it's on record and just, yeah.
All right, are there any other additional questions about the addition of the time? No? Someone like to make a motion to accept the bylaws as written?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the bylaws as written.
All right, it's been moved. Second,
I'll second it.
please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No, all right, the motion passed.
You got
We
that
accept the
down.
bylaws. Is there any additional information or questions we have for the staff?
What happened to Kentucky Fried Chicken?
They closed. We don't know. I know that they painted the building. We're not aware of another user going in there, so we
Are they
haven't,
going to
reopen
reopen
them?
or rebuild somewhere else?
we have not heard anything to that effect.
Wow.
Didn't even notice.
But don't they need a permit to paint?
Not to just paint it, no.
Put a sign on it,
Hey,
yeah.
it's all fine, it looks like a White Castle or something. I went, what is that?
I'll take a White Castle.
I'll take White Castle.
And there seems to be a lot of construction going on up on 20th Street at Eisenhower. It's, they've got, what, about 4 or 5
Industrial zone.
basements poured out there now?
Oh, the
Okay,
housing-
yep,
the
they've
housing area?
pulled, I'm not sure what the number is, but they've pulled quite a number of residential building permits, so they're, yeah, moving full steam ahead on the subdivision that was approved last
Moving
year.
right along on that, yeah.
Nice.
Anything else new coming in?
No, the only thing I would note is that, at our last meeting, we talked about just our annual update of the development regulations. I wanted to take my time doing a little bit of research on mainly the accessory dwelling units that we talked about. So like the dwelling units in a carriage house or something like that, that can get to be a pretty, complex process. So didn't want to rush bringing something to you, so that should be at the next meeting that we have to review that.
Well, if you have any other questions, concerns, all right, so let's go ahead and thank you all for your participation, and thank you all for coming down and expressing your opinions, and let's close the meeting.
All right,
Motion, do we need a motion? We need a motion. I think Jake
motion to
just-
close the meeting, yeah.
All right, motion to close, I hear a motion to close the meeting.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, seconded.
I'll second.
All right, anybody who wants to stay, stay. We're good.
I was waiting for a gavel. You went, I went,
I'm the vice president of the LCH, so when I hold that.